Hello. I thought I would address some questions today. This evening. Where is it today? It's today. Well, some may have been confused by some of the things that I have said. And I would like to clarify some of those things. It is true that I don't believe in things that have no evidence. So in that respect, I can be seen as an atheist. But that doesn't mean that I'm not spiritual, in a certain sense. It doesn't mean that I don't have a sense of relationship to something that I find unexplainable. Now, some would call that God. But I don't think I can be pompous enough to decide exactly what that is. So for me, the only thing that can be spoken in an intelligible way is the path that I have found to a kind of fulfillment. I believe that path is a path toward virtue, toward the human abilities to be empathetic, objective, and creative. And I believe that creativity is the source of our virtue of art, the ability to appreciate the beauty in ourselves, others, and life, and to help to create that beauty. I believe that objectivity is at the root of our virtue of truth. Not just what is true for me, what's that? But what is objectifiable. I believe in the idea that empathy is at the root of goodness. Because empathy means that we can share another's feelings, that we can share the condition of other things. And to me, this means a care for the planet, a care for ourselves and others. And I believe that these things can be important to our growth, but I don't believe that it comes from our imperfections, come from an act of will. So in this case, I sound much more or much less New Agey and more Christian perhaps. But what it takes to connect to those virtues is not just a communication with the sense of those virtues, which can happen in a variety of ways, but a path from the darkness in us to the light. And that path does not come to us as an act of something we can be proud about, that, I have achieved this, or this was my willpower. From that kind of illusion, we get the idea that other people are somehow superior to us or less than us. And neither of those things is true. They are just people. And deserving of our love and our respect. And useful, even the worst of us, or those of us in our worst of times, are beneficial to others as a challenge. And there's a great deal of meaning in life that can come forth from meeting such challenges. So I don't believe in punishment. I believe in healing. I do believe in protecting society, but not in being hateful toward those who have lost their way. This journey from darkness to light, well, what is the culprit? Did we do something bad, or did others do something bad that, results in our darkness? Not really. There's no evil there that produced what happened to us. It was just that all that in love, all that can exist should be allowed to, and that means travail and hardship and pain as well as everything else. So, some of that impacts us and that keeps us from making this growth and connection toward the light is damaged faith and love. And that comes when we have a helplessness around the expression of needs and feelings because of trauma and deprivation. And also comes about as helplessness to love as well as to be loved. These things are not things that any mammal can handle. So, in human beings, we have this ability to change that helpless situation into something symbolic of it that we can change. And there is the crux of the problem. Because chasing after symbolic love can never be fulfilling love. And so how do we get to the fulfilling love and our journey to the light? The way that we do this is that when we are in a safe situation, we can go back and relive that helpless situation and feel it so that we can know what it really was and let it impact our awareness fully. And when we are fully aware, then that helpless thing in the past becomes something in the past and not something symbolically expressed in the present, which means a continuous stress on our body and our mind, which can shorten our lives. And greed is born of chasing after symbolic love. Because greed is unfulfilling, and the reason it's unfulfilling is because it's only symbolic. When you eat and you're satisfied, that's it. If you eat in a symbolic way, you're never full. So it's either we face our anxieties and we feel them, or we let them control us. You can say there's some willpower involved with that, but it's more like the willpower that it takes to begin to exercise, for instance, which I need to do more of. If we, it's not something you like to do necessarily, it's something you like to have done. This is especially true with reliving something that once meant death or great illness that was once so attached to a deep anxiety that it would have literally might have killed us or made us very sick. No one willfully goes back to do that. It's beyond willpower. It takes grace. It takes surprising love, which it's very hard to do for yourself. So you need a therapist, someone to surprise you, or something to surprise you. You're more apt to be surprised if you go around trying to do good things, but that isn't enough, really. So other than being surprised by someone, the attachment to a true guru, the other path is to wear down your defenses, a kind of exercise where you approach yourself in a way that's you attempt as comforting, but you do it in an objective and empathetic and in a creative way. And as you keep doing that, the symbolic comforts get dislodged. They become ineffective. And so the real feelings begin to emerge. But it's not because you willed it so. It's because you wore the defense system in you down to the point that healing could occur. So it's nothing that you can be proud about. And it takes time. The path can be summed up as feeling what happened to you, that helplessness, so that you can know what you truly lost, that real love, not the symbolic, which you can cry about all day and night, and it isn't going to help you. You have to feel what happened to you before you can know what you have lost. And once you know what you've lost, then you can grieve that loss and you can let it go. And only after that, and to the degree that you have done that, can you forgive yourself and others involved in that loss. So, that has to happen before you can handle, to any degree, those times when the pain or that helplessness in you caused you to create helplessness for another, caused you to hurt another person. Because feeling that means to feel what in the song Amazing Grace calls feeling and knowing the wretch inside ourselves. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Well, you have to get to that point before you're able to handle seeing some degree of the wretchedness within yourself. And then there's true sorrow and true repentance. And the blessing of that is that in that sorrow and repentance, you are no longer that person who did that. So, is this a once over lightly cure? No, you have to go deeper and deeper. And there's at some point where you will probably need others to help you go further. And, well, in fact, all the way down to some extent. But a lot of that will just come naturally. But, because your associations will change. But the other thing is that you might have to seek out people who are extremely expert in helping and who work in a crew. That's important, to take you down to that deepest of all sense of helplessness, that anxiety that is wordless terror, that part of ourselves that isn't the birthplace of nightmares but night terrors, that those events that occurred before we had good use of language or a true social sense. That could be defined in two ways. I think it's very impacting below the age of 6. But from birth to 3 months, extremely impacting. There is a form of memory that is not the usual kind, which may require this myelination of the cells. It's a more physical one. And I believe that exists. And I believe there's evidence for it. But I won't go into that. Not now. It's enough to begin where you are and take a journey from there. In terms of my political views, I take into account the level of this sickness that exists in our society. Because if a candidate is too enlightened, they may be unelectable. It means that degree of change is too much for the society to handle at a given time. So you might have to take a smaller step. The candidate that is less progressive might be the more progressive choice. Pushing change too quickly is not the democratic way, and it can cause more damage. But not pushing things fast enough can cause an interminable state of dysfunction. So it's up to us to try to decide just how much to push. Education is a good way. If people can't be educated in these things, then that means there's a great limitation. And someone who believes in things without evidence, be a progressive person, I don't think they can be as progressive as someone who doesn't, because of the pride involved, the notion that I can create facts, that somehow there's truth in something just because it comforts me, or just because I like it. That's very pompous, and I think very neurotic. So, yeah, to the degree that someone is religious, perhaps they are not very progressive. And that doesn't mean they have no progressivism in them at all. And some people might have heard me say that a true progressive is not religious. Well, that's one definition. And I would have to say that I believe that. But that doesn't mean that there's not a big gray area. And people can be very progressive in some ways and not in others, and so on. So it's, again, sometimes when we say something, you gotta remember that what's said fits into a larger context. So, how do we wear the defenses down? Well, there are 3 verbal dialogues, and there are 3 non-verbal approaches. And that constitutes the teaching of inner yoga or optimistic integration that I teach. But we'll wait for another time to discuss this. I look forward to any comments, and I appreciate your time today. As I like to end things, in a way that says a lot with one word. I say namaste, because that word means that which is wonderful and precious and connected to all things that lives in me honors and respects that same in you. For you are the hero in the movie of your life, struggling against things inside you and outside you, needing a hand up sometimes, and even needing sometimes to give a hand up, but always the hero. So let me honor that hero in you too as I close. Namaste.